Hi, it's Katrina. What's going on in the Aegean Sea? The beautiful island of Santorini with its iconic white buildings and breathtaking blue waters is on everyone's bucket list. But beneath that serene surface lies a geological monster called the Hellenic Arc, a chain of volcanic islands born from the clash of tectonic titans. It's potentially 30 times more dangerous than the infamous San Andreas Fault. In today's video, we'll explore if there really is a chance the ancient volcano might awaken, or if this is just normal tectonic activity. Whether it's volcanoes, an ice age on the horizon, or even an asteroid heading towards us, Earth is going through some stuff. Let's take a look. Santorini is about to explode. When you think of Greece's Aegean Islands, you probably picture sipping wine on a sun-drenched terrace and gazing out at the peaceful blue sea. You don't imagine dodging an endless barrage of earthquakes like you're in a real-life game of seismic whack-a-mole. Yet here we are on the edge of a trembling apocalypse. The islands of Amorgos, Anafi, and Santorini have been getting rattled by tremors that just won't quit, some reaching a hefty magnitude of 5.3. That isn't enough to bring the house down, so to speak, but it is worrisome. I don't know if you were aware, but Santorini was once home to a mighty civilization. And guess what happened to them? They were destroyed by the forces of nature. Over a series of stressful days in February, locals traded their ouzo for anxiety as these quakes kept rolling in. Things got so shaky that over 2/3 of Santorini's residents packed their bags and made a swift exit. Meanwhile, authorities closed schools, banned large indoor gatherings, and warned everyone to steer clear of the coastline and the precarious cliffs that make Santorini so beautiful. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis, trying his best to keep things cool, declared a state of emergency while reassuring the public that the government has full confidence in science. Which is great, except the scientists themselves are standing around a little concerned. "It's a real puzzle," said David Pyle, a volcanologist at the University of Oxford. And when an Oxford scientist says something is perplexing, you know it's serious. The earthquakes aren't following the usual script. Normally, a fault slips, there's a big main shock, and then aftershocks gradually taper off. But not this time. Instead, Greece had an ongoing swarm of similarly sized quakes that just kept going and going. Santorini is sitting on top of a still active volcanic system. Why settle for beautiful sunsets when you can have a geological time bomb underfoot? The island was reshaped by a colossal eruption around 1600 BC, which was largely responsible for wiping out an entire civilization and inspiring the legend of Atlantis. In fact, many suspect that Santorini is the real Atlantis. However, experts aren't pointing fingers at magma this time. Instead, the culprit seems to be a fault zone just offshore, which is cracking and groaning like an old wooden ship in a storm. Isabel Yeo, a submarine volcanologist from the National Oceanography Center in Southampton, assured everyone that Santorini is experiencing tectonic activity, not volcanic. Earthquake swarms are like that one friend who never sticks to plans. They do whatever they want, whenever they want. In some places, like Iceland, swarms often mean magma is on the move, sometimes leading to an eruption. But in places like Yellowstone, swarms can rumble for weeks and then nothing. No lava, no explosions, just a bunch of seismologists pulling all-nighters for no reason. Scientists suspect the quakes around Santorini might be triggered by underground fluids sneaking through fault lines. Think of it as nature's way of playing an elaborate, high-stakes game of Jenga. These fluids can push faults apart, causing quakes that ripple through the region. Is Santorini about to go full-on Pompeii? Definitely, but maybe not just yet. Despite the dramatic rumblings, experts like Efthimios Lekas, head of the Scientific Monitoring Committee for the Hellenic Volcanic Arc, say that Santorini's volcanic system only produces catastrophic explosions about every 20,000 years. The island has about 17,000 years to go before it's due for another massive blowout. It already destroyed the Minoans 3,000 years ago, so it's a little premature for another society-destroying eruption. Do you believe him, or are you still a little nervous? Let me know in the comments. City-killing asteroid update. NASA just gave us a much-needed update in the ongoing saga of asteroid 2024 YR4, and for once, it's good news. For months, this space rock had scientists biting their nails because at one point, the odds of it slamming into Earth were about 1 in 32. But now, NASA says the odds have plummeted to 1 in 26,000. Overnight, the chances of us being obliterated by a space rock have dropped to barely anything at all. To put the numbers into perspective, you have a better chance of getting struck by lightning while winning the lottery on your birthday twice. The asteroid is not coming for Earth. Everyone can breathe a sigh of relief. Phew! But just how close were we to complete and total annihilation? At its peak, YR4 was the riskiest asteroid in town, earning a rare 3 out of 10 on the Torino scale. That's a rating system for asteroid threats created by MIT's Professor Richard Benzel. Think of it like the DEFCON levels, but for space rocks instead of nuclear war. Now it's been bumped down from a 3 to a 0. Now you can stress about apocalyptic earthquakes and floods instead. NASA's Sentry Impact Monitoring System shows that on December 22nd, 2032, instead of obliterating a city, the asteroid will be minding its own business and drifting harmlessly past Earth, probably waving as it goes. Discovered in December 2024, this asteroid measures around 177 feet long. It isn't big enough to wipe out humanity, but it is large enough to turn a major city into an unplanned crater. NASA estimated that if this thing hit Earth, it would have unleashed the energy of 8 megatons of TNT, which is 500 times more powerful than the bomb of Hiroshima that forced the Japanese to surrender in World War II. Depending on where it hit, millions may have been killed. The level of destruction would have been something humanity had never seen before. We should all be very grateful that the space rock has chosen to spare us, at least for now. But space is full of surprises and rogue boulders, so NASA isn't taking any chances. That's why they've been testing ways to deflect dangerous asteroids. For example, their DART mission, which successfully crashed a spaceship into an asteroid just to see if they could move it. And they did. Professor Benzel said NASA will probably detect more near-Earth objects like 2024 YR4 in the future, but that's honestly a good thing. The more scientists know about these space rocks, the less likely they are to catch us off guard. You don't want to go out like the dinosaurs, do you? And now for a quick break because it's shout-out time! I want to give a big thank you to Melinda Pelcha and Katina Martin for supporting this channel. Thanks so much for watching. If you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already for more videos like these. The insane plan to save the Arctic's ice. Is humanity's last hope a bunch of scientists in parkas and a really, really long hose? Because that's what's happening in the Arctic right now, and I'm not sure if this is a good thing. Scientists are all bundled up, standing on a vast sheet of ice in the middle of nowhere, pumping seawater like their lives depend on it. They're watering the ice. So listen to this and tell me if it's brilliant or totally bonkers. This isn't the setup for a weird Arctic-themed reality show. It's a real experiment aimed at slowing down global warming. Global warming that will either turn the world into a fireball or an ice ball. No one is sure which will happen just yet, but I'll get to that in a bit. The idea is that if scientists can thicken sea ice, it might survive longer, reflecting more of the sun's energy instead of letting the dark ocean gulp it up. In theory, this could pause or even reverse some of the damage that humans have done. But is this an ingenious climate fix or the science equivalent of duct taping your car back together? Some experts are a little bit skeptical. Which leads me to the controversy of what we call geoengineering. If you've never heard of geoengineering, it's basically humanity's last-ditch attempt to hack the planet and undo centuries of bad decisions. It's not solving the root problem, just trying to make things look better. Some strategies for geoengineering, like planting more trees and trapping carbon underground, make sense. Others are a bit more out there, like the proposals to make clouds shinier by spraying sea salt into the air, or blocking the sun altogether like Mr. Burns, only to reflect sunlight back into space instead of forcing everyone to run their lights during the day. Let's get back to our parka-clad heroes in the Arctic. Their plan, led by Dr. Sean Fitzgerald and his team at the University of Cambridge, is relatively simple. First, drill a hole in the ice. Then pump up seawater, letting it freeze on the surface. Repeat until the ice is thicker than it was. In their tiny test area, they have successfully added a few extra inches of frozen hope, but scaling this up to actually save the Arctic is where things get tricky. The Arctic isn't a backyard ice rink. It's a vast, complex ecosystem, and some experts are side-eyeing this whole idea as ridiculous. Professor Martin Siegert from the University of Exeter is not convinced. He points out that saltier ice melts faster. All this extra seawater might speed up melting. Professor Julian Stroh from the University College London is even blunter. She said that it is quite insane that this could be done at scale for the entire Arctic Ocean. Dr. Fitzgerald and his team insist they are only testing the idea, not claiming it's a miracle cure. They say that stopping fossil fuel use is priority number one. But they also argue that even if humanity hits the brakes right now on fossil fuels, the Arctic is still in serious trouble. What do you think about all this? Let me know in the comments. The unclimbable peak of the world. Frostbite. Fear. Forever off limits. Mount Kailash is no ordinary piece of geology. It's a mountain so mysterious that even the best climbers in the world take one look at it and say, "No way, Jose." It is an unclimbable peak shrouded in icy clouds and strange mysteries. Sitting at a nosebleed-inducing 21,778 feet above sea level, Mount Kailash is a no-entry zone for climbers. It's also home to crazy formations that look like the fossils of giant stone people slumbering along its slopes. It literally looks like a graveyard for titans. The highest point mere mortals can reach on this mountain is Dolma La Pass, which sits at around 18,000 feet high. That is 3,000 feet short of the peak, and even that's no walk in the park, unless your idea of a fun walk involves oxygen deprivation and freezing temperatures. Mine sure doesn't. But why exactly is Mount Kailash off limits? What's hiding up there in the great snowy Chinese peaks? For starters, it's not just a mountain. It is the spiritual penthouse suite for 4 major religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Bon. Hindus say it's Lord Shiva's home, while Jainists believe their first Tirthankar achieved salvation here. Mount Kailash can certainly leave one with a profound feeling of their place in the universe. As for Buddhists, they've gone ahead and labeled it the actual center of the universe. Every year, thousands of pilgrims make the journey to Mount Kailash for the legendary Kailash Mansarovar Yatra. Devotees believe that just seeing the mountain cleanses a lifetime of bad karma. All those bad things you did and thought in your life, take a look at the mountain and the slate is wiped clean. But climbing it? That's a hard no. There was one guy though. One guy who climbed the mountain and had instant regret. According to legend, a Tibetan sage named Milarepa reached the summit almost 1,000 years ago. The 11th century spiritual poet started off as a murderer. Later, he turned his life around with some serious Buddhist dedication. Milarepa supposedly made it to the top of Mount Kailash with no ropes, no Sherpas, just pure ascetic power. And what did he do after achieving the impossible? He came down and told everyone else, "Don't do that." Why? Because he allegedly found secrets up there that humanity wasn't ready for. Milarepa reached the home of the gods, and they were peeved. Since then, no one has dared to summit the sacred peak. It's not even allowed for anyone to attempt it. Here's a fun fact for you. Mount Kailash is way shorter than Everest, but while thousands have conquered Everest, including a guy who did it in a chicken costume, nobody has officially done Kailash. Some climbers have tried though, including British mountaineers Hugh Rutledge and R.C. Wilson. Spoiler alert, they failed. One blamed a sudden storm, the other claimed mystical forces were at play. Either way, they both went home with nothing but frostbite and regret. In 1980, the Chinese government asked a legendary mountaineer Reinhold Messner to give it a shot, but at the last minute, he backed out. It was like Michael Jordan refusing to take a free throw because the basket felt weird. You just know something is up with this mountain. Some researchers claim that Mount Kailash looks suspiciously like a man-made pyramid. If that weren't enough, NASA has captured satellite images that resemble Lord Shiva's face on the mountain. And then there are those titan-sized, human-like formations that look almost like bones. Is this a divine photobomb or just some really convenient rocks? Let me know in the comments. And if you like mysteries like this one, don't forget to subscribe. The end is nigh. An apocalyptic omen delivered by a fish has sparked widespread dread. While maintaining composure is advised, a touch of panic is understandable. The fish in question is none other than a rare oarfish. It just showed up a few days ago in shallow waters off Baja California Sur in Mexico. If you're familiar with deep sea folklore and mermaid legends, you'll know the oarfish is a harbinger of doom. Nicknamed the doomsday fish, this long, ribbon-like deep-sea creature has been blamed for predicting everything from earthquakes to tsunamis. This thing is a real-life sea monster. It can grow up to around 35 feet long. It's silvery and covered in eerie red fins. If someone designed a sea serpent in a video game, it would probably look like this fish. Oarfish normally chill at depths of up to around 3,000 feet deep, where they mind their own business far away from humans. When one suddenly appears near the surface, people start connecting the dots, especially in Japan, where these fish have long been called Ryugu no Tsukai. In English, that means messenger from the sea god's palace. That sounds both impressive and deeply unsettling. According to centuries-old Japanese folklore, when these deep-sea creatures rise to the surface, something bad is about to happen. Usually a massive earthquake or a tsunami. And history has not exactly helped ease the paranoia. In 2011, 20 oarfish washed up in Japan right before the Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. The tsunami caused massive waves over 120 feet high and resulted in over 15,000 deaths. In 2013, 2 oarfish showed up on California beaches. Shortly after, a 7.0 magnitude earthquake struck. Is this one big coincidence, or are these deep-sea noodles trying to warn us? The evidence does point to oarfish rising only in the lead-up to horrible disasters and earthquakes. Some scientists think that seismic activity might mess with deep ocean currents, confusing oarfish and pushing them toward the surface. Another theory is that large releases of carbon monoxide from the seabed could make deep-sea creatures disoriented, forcing them into unfamiliar waters. Whatever the cause, oarfish do show up before you-know-what hits the fan. And as if the recent oarfish sighting wasn't spooky enough, just days before, a deep-sea anglerfish was caught on camera off the coast of the Canary Islands in broad daylight. These deep-sea monsters from Finding Nemo typically live at depths of up to 6,000 feet, meaning they do not just casually show up for a beach day. So when one suddenly does, people start to worry. When anglerfish rise to the surface around the same time as oarfish, people start retreating to their doomsday bunkers. But are we really doomed? Is there a world-ending earthquake on the horizon? The truth is, no one knows. Give it a few days or a few weeks, and if disaster hasn't struck, let's just call it a false alarm. The Ice Age cometh. Imagine that humanity finally gets its act together. I know, it's a pipe dream, right? But just for fun, let's say we as a species cut emissions, stop burning fossil fuels, and somehow reverse global warming. That's great, right? But what if it backfires? What if fixing climate change accidentally plunges us into a new ice age? You could go from worrying about rising sea levels to needing to dig your car out of a glacier. Earth has always been a bit of a drama queen when it comes to temperature. Over the last billion years, our planet has swung between extreme hot and cold periods, like a cosmic thermostat with a mind of its own. There have been ice ages where glaciers covered massive portions of the Earth, and there have been many interglacial periods, like the relatively warm one humans have been living in since the last ice age ended about 12,000 years ago. Scientists believe we are eventually due for another ice age, possibly in the next 10,000 to 100,000 years. That really feels like a later problem. But what if the ice age were to come along a lot sooner? One theory suggests that the heat trapped in the Earth's atmosphere from greenhouse gases is holding off the next ice age. Normally, over thousands of years, natural climate cycles would tip Earth into another deep freeze. But our fossil fuel binge might be delaying that. In other words, global warming has overridden the natural cooling processes of the Earth. There is an opposing theory, though, that says the complete opposite. Some scientists believe global warming could cause an ice age by messing with ocean currents. The Gulf Stream, a massive ocean current that warms Europe by redistributing warm water from the tropics, could slow down or even shut off if too much Arctic ice melts. Remember our friends from earlier spraying salt water on the ice? They are trying to prevent this very thing from happening. Think of the Gulf Stream like a giant conveyor belt moving warm water across the Atlantic Ocean. Scientists have already detected a 30% slowdown in these currents. If the Gulf Stream weakens too much, temperatures in Europe could plummet, leading to freezing conditions that might feel suspiciously like the start of a new ice age. Global warming could indirectly push parts of the world into a deep freeze. No one, not even the best climate scientists alive right now, know when or if this will become a cold reality. We could be living in underwater cities because global warming flooded the world before the planet spins into another ice age. Which one would you prefer? The event set to kill thousands. If you thought last summer was hot enough to fry an egg on the sidewalk, buckle up because things are getting even hotter. Global warming is turning up the dial and humans are starting to feel the heat. Some have already succumbed to extreme temperatures. And thanks to something called the wet bulb effect, humanity might be on a crash course with disaster. Wet bulb? What the heck is that? In simple terms, it is a heat wave's worst nightmare. In more frightening terms, it is certain death. In an ideal world, the human body hums along at a cozy 97.88 degrees Fahrenheit, but cranking up the heat past a certain point, especially when it's humid, turns our built-in cooling system into a tragic design flaw. This is the wet bulb effect. When temperatures hit 95 degrees Fahrenheit and it's also 100% humidity out, sweat stops evaporating. Since sweat is responsible for 80% of our cooling, that's bad news. Without a way to cool down, the body overheats faster than a car with a broken radiator. Within 6 hours, things can take a deadly turn. Extreme heat used to be a rare inconvenience, but now it's becoming a full-blown crisis. The elderly and vulnerable are feeling the brunt of it, and global temperatures keep smashing records. Let's zip over to India to see how they're dealing with wet bulb events. Last April, Indian TV presenter Lopamudra Sina was reporting the heat wave when she fainted live on air. She later explained that extreme heat and a busted studio cooling system took her down, but she wasn't alone in suffering. Temperatures in India have been sizzling between 104 degrees Fahrenheit and 114 degrees Fahrenheit, inching dangerously close to the human limit. And Africa is even worse. If you think 114 degrees Fahrenheit sounds unbearable, Mali would like a word. The country has been scorched by temperatures exceeding 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Hey, sounds like Las Vegas. Hospitals were overwhelmed. In the capital, Bamako, the Gabriel Touré Hospital reported 102 heat-related deaths in just a few days. Last August, cities like Dubai and Doha came dangerously close to wet bulb conditions too. And to make matters worse, rising humidity is accelerating warming. Every 1 degree Celsius rise in temperature increases water vapor by 7%. The more humid it gets, the faster the heat rises. We're basically cooking ourselves. That's why 118 degrees Fahrenheit in Las Vegas is more bearable. Like everyone says, it's a dry heat. 118 degrees in Florida with humidity, then you have a big problem. Hence, the wet bulb. The point I'm making here is that the worst disaster on the horizon might not be space rocks or volcanoes, but the air itself. The future is looking sweaty. A 2020 study found that wet bulb events, which have lasted just 1 to 2 hours in the past, could stretch to 6+ hours a day by 2060. If that happens, stepping outside could become a death sentence. By 2070, an estimated 3 billion people could find themselves living in places that are uninhabitable due to extreme heat. Popsicle profits are about to go through the roof. What do you think? Is it time to move to Antarctica? The Alaska crater science can't explain. Alaska is full of breathtaking landscapes, but few are as perplexing as the Savonowski crater. It's a massive hole in the ground that has baffled scientists for years. Is it a portal to another dimension? Evidence of a visit from green men from Mars? An entrance to Hollow Earth? Scientists say probably none of the above, and yet they have almost no geological evidence explaining how it got there. The crater is about 1,600 feet across and 360 feet deep. Those figures are from a 1978 report from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Half of the crater is now a picturesque little lake, thanks to rainfall and snowmelt. From above, it looks like a classic meteorite impact site. There's just one small problem. Scientists have found absolutely zero evidence of a space rock smashing into the Earth at this spot. Typically, an impact crater would be surrounded by shattered rock, scattered debris, or signs of high-pressure shock. But after extensive surveys, scientists found none of these telltale markers. Another theory is that the crater could be a volcanic maar, a type of hole formed when magma sneaks up from the Earth's crust, hits underground water, and causes an epic steam explosion. The result of such an explosion is a broad, water-filled crater. Alaska's Ukinrek Maar, which appeared in 1977 after a 10-day-long eruption, is a great example of this process. But there are no obvious volcanic features near Zavonovsky crater. No lava flows, no magma chambers, no ominous smoke plumes. There is no evidence to show that the crater was formed volcanically. So, what made it? That's the fun of the mystery. Nobody knows. The Zavonovsky crater remains one of Alaska's greatest geological wonders. Whether it's an ancient explosion or a cosmic sucker punch, experts are stumped. The biggest time bomb on Earth. Deep beneath Yellowstone National Park in Wyoming, a ticking time bomb has been brewing for over 640,000 years. This isn't some sci-fi doomsday scenario. It is the Yellowstone supervolcano, a magma reservoir with the potential to unleash a Category 8 eruption, one over 100 times more powerful than the infamous Krakatoa blast. Thankfully, humanity has never witnessed a supervolcanic eruption in recorded history, but with the power of artificial intelligence, we now have a glimpse of what such an event might look like. Using Google's ImageFX AI, researchers have simulated the horrifying consequences of a Yellowstone eruption. Let's just say it's not pretty. But also, let's look at the exact shocking details of what happens when the world's scariest volcano blows its top. If Yellowstone were to erupt, the immediate impact would be devastating. Rivers of molten lava would surge up to 40 miles from the eruption site, incinerating everything in their path. But that's just the warm-up act. Within a 50-mile radius, entire towns would be annihilated by pyroclastic flows, the same fiery avalanches of ash and rock that preserved Pompeii in a ghostly embrace. Meanwhile, the United States would be buried under a thick, choking layer of volcanic ash, and the entire world would plunge into a volcanic winter lasting for years. The initial explosion alone would unleash the energy of 875,000 megatons of TNT. That's more than 100 times the power of every nuclear bomb ever detonated. Professor Tamsin Mather, an earth scientist at Oxford, explained that massive eruptions often create vast pits, known as calderas, as the Earth's crust collapses under its own weight. This, in turn, can force more magma to the surface, making an already catastrophic situation even worse. In other words, the initial explosion can lead to even more explosions, like a bomb that just won't stop blowing up. For those lucky enough to survive the initial eruption, the next nightmare would be the ash fall. Unlike soft campfire ash, volcanic ash is dense, sharp, and heavy enough to collapse buildings. Simulations show that Yellowstone's ash cloud would be so powerful it could outpace the wind for days, coating nearly all of North America. Ash could travel up to 932 miles, reaching as far as Miami and LA. If conditions were just right, London might even see a light ashfall, like a snowstorm, but way, way worse. And the devastation wouldn't stop there. Ashfall across America's farmland would decimate crops, causing a food crisis that would ripple across the globe. The good news is that experts say Yellowstone won't erupt soon. It will go off eventually, though not soon enough that we should panic. But if it did happen, let's just say it would make 2020 look like a picnic. The next great biblical flood. It's happened before, and scientists say it could happen again. A flood of global scale, something straight out of the Bible. We're gonna need a bigger boat. Tens of thousands of years ago, a massive ice sheet in Antarctica melted, causing sea levels to rise up to 30 feet. Now, as the world heats up, new research suggests we could be on the brink of another catastrophic melt. If history repeats itself, humanity is looking at another dramatic sea level rise that could lead to a global flood. Researchers led by Oregon State University geologist Anders Carlson found that the ice sheet collapsed about 125,000 years ago under climate conditions similar to today's. Maybe it was an industrial antediluvian civilization, maybe it was Mother Nature. Either way, the global flood swallowed the world. To uncover this ancient disaster, Carlson's team examined unexamined marine sediment cores taken offshore of Antarctica. These long cylinders of mud and silt provide a historical record of climate changes over thousands of years. Unlike today, the warming 125,000 years ago wasn't human-induced. Scientists speculate that a minor shift in Earth's orbit and spin axis led to warming in the northern hemisphere, which then triggered global climate changes. So how close are we to seeing a real global flood? Closer than you might think. 3 trillion tons of ice have melted from Antarctica in the past 25 years, with ice loss tripling over the past decade. That's equivalent to over 2 quadrillion gallons of water dumped into the world's oceans. It's enough to fill 1 billion swimming pools or submerge Texas under 13 feet of water. And that's just the beginning. In 2019 alone, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration recorded over 600 high tide floods. But NASA says things will get worse in the 2030s thanks to the moon's 18.6-year orbital cycle. Half the time, the moon suppresses high tides. The other half, it amplifies them. When the next amplification phase hits, coastal cities could experience flooding every day or two. If you live on the coast, I hope you have high pants and that your house is on stilts. The flooding of coastal cities will be the start of the next worldwide flood.
Thanks for watching! Be sure to stay tuned for extra content you might have missed. Underground oceans. How did we get our oceans? There's a long-standing theory among scientists that the oceans of the Earth formed when icy comets smacked into the planet. But new research now offers us a different explanation for the origin of the Earth's oceans. More recent studies propose that the oceans we know today actually seeped out from the center of our planet. These findings were recently published in the journal Science, and experts are suggesting that beneath our feet, right now, there is a massive reservoir of water 3 times the volume of water on the surface, hidden inside the mantle of the Earth at least 400 miles underground. What's even more incredible is that all of this water is trapped inside of rocks. These rocks are called ringwoodite. The rocks are bright blue and only form at high temperatures and intense pressures, 2 things found inside the Earth's mantle. According to Stephen Jacobson from Northwestern University, the water that makes up our oceans would have been squeezed out of the rocks hundreds of millions of years ago, almost as if they were sweating. This newest information brings more complexity to the water cycle. Water circulates between the atmosphere and the oceans, and it also extends deep into the interior of the Earth. It seeps into the mantle where it eventually becomes ringwoodite. Smithsonian reports that the team of scientists use seismometers to measure the motion of energy waves caused by earthquakes through the ground under the United States. The waves slow down as they pass through the region of the mantle containing ringwoodite. The scientists suggest that the saturation of ringwoodite with water explains the sluggishness of the waves through this particular region of the Earth's center. Strange beasts. Scientists have wondered for a very long time just how deep down inside the Earth's crust animals can survive. Well, some strange creatures living in the deep and dark depths of gold mines in South Africa may have just answered this question. Known as nematodes, these strange animals are currently the deepest living creatures ever discovered by humans. Nobody knows how these tiny worms ended up so far below the surface of the Earth, but scientists say they were probably living in the mines for thousands of years. Their existence is suggesting that complicated life forms can indeed survive much deeper inside the Earth than previously thought possible. Far below your feet, the bowels of the Earth are hot and dark. There is almost no oxygen and possibly dangerous gases. There's very little food, and this is why scientists have believed that only single-celled organisms could survive in such harsh conditions. But now it seems that incredible nematode worms are living in these exact conditions. Nematode worms are able to survive extreme temperatures, cold, heat, and even dehydration. They have a special trick that allows them to survive, in which they go into what is known as the dour stage, a type of hibernation in which they basically go to sleep and then wake up again when there's some food to eat. Nematodes are so hardy that they were on board the Space Shuttle Columbia. They survived space and the spaceship's disintegration as it fell back to Earth. They have been found in every corner of the world, from the hottest deserts to the coldest regions of Antarctica. They've been found inside of humans and inside sperm whales. And now these harmless little worms are the deepest dwellers on our planet. Slumbering volcanoes. Scientists have just revealed a hidden Jurassic world of volcanoes found in Australia. This field of volcanoes dates back to the reign of the dinosaurs. These volcanoes have been sleeping deep underground for millions of years, totally invisible to everyone above ground. There are about 100 of these volcanoes, and they've been dormant for roughly 180 million years. Covering an area of about 2,900 square miles, they were discovered in Australia's Cooper and Eromanga basins, a desert region in the center of the continent. All those years ago, the volcanoes would have been above ground and would have spewed lava from their mouths, but they have since been buried under hundreds of feet of rock, hiding until just recently. It was 30 years ago that drilling in Australia turned up the first evidence of rocks formed because of cooled magma. These rocks were roughly 200 million years old. Simon Holford from the University of Adelaide's Australian School of Petroleum says that because of decades of fossil fuel extraction, the experts have gathered a huge amount of data from this region. This data was recently inspected by scientists who then identified the sleeping volcanoes. The good news for all of us Earth dwellers is that the volcanic network is not currently active. During the Jurassic period, things were a bit different. These volcanoes were extremely active, belching lava and ash almost constantly. But for now, we can all rest easy knowing that these underground volcanoes aren't going to suddenly explode right underneath our feet. The Kola Super Borehole. The Kola Super Borehole was an ambitious project during the Cold War to drill a hole as deep as humanly possible straight through the Earth. Fortunately, the hole didn't open up on the other side of the Earth, giving the Russians a direct passage through the center of the planet to US soil. Instead, the hole, which of course was drilled on the Kola Peninsula in the Arctic Circle by a team of Soviet scientists, revealed just how inept we are at exploring the interior of our own planet. The hole is to this day the deepest artificial point on Earth. It measures 40,230 feet deep. Locals have denounced it as an entrance to hell, with some people swearing that you can actually hear the screams of tortured souls suffering in the great infernal plain of damnation. It's probably just the wind tunnel and the sounds of the Earth, but scary nonetheless. Even after drilling every day for 20 years, they made it 1/3 of the way through the Earth's crust. That says a lot about how thick our Earth is. They couldn't even reach the mantle. The Earth's crust is about 25 miles thick at its thinnest point, and the mantle beneath it is 1,800 miles thick. And beyond the mantle is the core of our planet, which in all likelihood, humans will never lay eyes on. The Kola Super Borehole was given up during the chaos of the Soviet Union's dissolvement. The hole still exists, but nobody is really doing anything interesting with it. According to the BBC, the Japanese are starting a hole of their own, so let's wait and see just how far they get. A new layer of the Earth's core. 2021 has been a shocking year for Earth science. It was very recently unveiled that the Earth has a special layer that nobody knew about. Researchers discovered a brand new layer of our planet, and they're calling it the innermost inner core. And yes, this is a monumental discovery. The study came out of Australian National University and was published in the Journal of Geophysical Research Solid Earth. Researchers proved there is a fifth layer sitting beyond the inner core. Scientists say that a slight change in the structure of iron deep inside the Earth indicates two separate cooling events occurred in our planet's history. Joanne Stevenson, the lead author of the study, still doesn't know what event transpired or why there are two inner cores. All she knows is that the core is composed of two distinct layers. Further research still needs to be done for us to understand the evolution of our planet, and before schools all over the world are forced to rewrite their textbooks. But feel free to tell your friends all about the extra layer of the Earth. And now for something even crazier. But first, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more videos like these. And quick shout out to Raka Bird for supporting Origins Explained. Life inside the mantle. I told you about the nematodes, those complex worms that live very deep inside the Earth's crust. But an international team of scientists who recently returned from a 6-week expedition to the mid-Atlantic are now claiming they found life even deeper inside the Earth. This life was microbial. They apparently found it dwelling inside of the actual mantle, which scientists have previously thought impossible. This is because the mantle of the Earth is molten. It's basically fire. The team excavated samples from an extremely deep region known as the Atlantic Massif. This is an area underwater in which new oceanic crust is born from deep in the planet. The rock here is also found deep inside of the mantle, and it's known as green peridotite. These rocks have been pushed out of the mantle, which is how the scientists could study them. Within the rock were tiny microbial life forms. But don't get too excited yet. Researchers are still unsure whether the life they found originated inside the mantle or came from mantle rocks that had been pushed up to the sea floor thousands and thousands of years ago. Hollow Earth. One of the strangest and most controversial theories about what is hidden under the Earth's crust is known as the Hollow Earth theory. Hollow Earth says that there are, in fact, hidden underground pockets deep beneath the surface of the planet which could harbor life unlike anything we have ever seen before. Hollow Earth would mean that there is a subterranean world filled with animals and monsters that not even H.P. Lovecraft could detail. And while Hollow Earth theory has long been seen as a crackpot theory, like Flat Earth theory, it was once seriously considered by respectable scientists. The beginning of Hollow Earth theory came from cultural mythologies that described a world beneath our own. In the early days of science, some believed that the Earth was not very dense, meaning there could be room for monsters. And believe it or not, you can actually take the planet Venus and stuff it inside of the Earth. Even with the thick outer crust, there would be sufficient room for an entire Earth-like landscape with its own atmosphere. There could theoretically be around 178 million square miles for titanic animals and great beasts to roam, sort of like Jules Verne's journey to the center of the Earth. Of course, this is all impossible considering what we know today. The Earth's core is solid iron, and there is a huge layer of molten rock. But even if that molten rock weren't there, the hollow space in the Earth would have roughly 20 times the pressure of what we experience at the surface. 200 miles beneath the surface, the pressure would be so intense that nothing in the fictional subterranean world we're talking about could survive. Still, it's a fun theory. The liquid core. New research has finally determined the age of the solid inner core of our planet. Beneath all the layers of the giant onion that we live on, a solid inner core is wrapped inside a ball of liquid iron, and that liquid is slowly turning solid. Scientists know today that the solid inner core is actually getting larger as the liquid iron around it cools and crystallizes. This process of crystallization is what creates the magnetic field surrounding our planet, thus protecting us from cosmic radiation that would otherwise cook us into mutants. Despite all we know about the core, we haven't really figured out much about its history. The giant iron ball is 1,500 miles wide, and throughout the years, estimates of its age have gone from 500 million years to over 4 billion years. We do know that the Earth itself is 4.5 billion years old. And now, thanks to researchers, we have discovered that the approximate age of the core is between 1 and 1.3 billion years old. How did scientists figure this out? According to Life Science, they took a tiny scrap of iron and pressed it between two diamonds before blasting it with lasers. This recreated the conditions of the core's original creation by superheating the piece of iron and squeezing it between the diamonds. According to the results, the core was made over 3 billion years after the Earth itself was formed. Alien planet Theia. Did you know there is an alien planet buried deep inside of our own planet? And scientists have just located its remains. This alien planet collided into ours roughly 4.5 billion years ago. The alien planet was roughly the size of Mars, and its collision with the Earth resulted in the creation of the Moon. It also resulted in 2 slivers of itself being lodged into the Earth's mantle. The planet's name is Theia. Researchers around the globe have never disputed the existence of this alien planet. Everyone knows that Theia crashed into Earth and a piece got knocked loose, getting stuck in orbit and becoming the Moon. But a new study led by a geodynamics researcher named Qian Yuan from Arizona State University believes the 2 chunks of planet Theia, each of which is roughly the size of a continent, are currently stuck beneath West Africa and the Pacific Ocean. Here's how the information was gathered. Seismologists studying the rock layers in which pieces of planet Theia are believed to be located discovered that seismic waves produced by earthquakes slow as they pass through these rock layers. These are the only 2 incidences in which this phenomenon occurs. The suggestion is that the rock here is chemically different and denser than all the surrounding rock. The best theory scientists have is that they are so different because they came from a different planet, planet Theia. Secret magma pools. A new study has revealed a threat hiding just under the surface of the Earth. Volcanologists have found shallow magma pools previously undetectable by seismic imaging technologies. These strange pools of magma are too small and too close to the surface for imaging technology to pick them up. The implications of this study are that small magma bodies could be more widely distributed across the planet than previously thought. What this means is that planning and estimating risks of volcanic eruptions in the future might be a little more difficult. A hidden magma body could add fuel to an eruption that scientists otherwise estimated as being mild or non-lethal. Experts say that the risk varies depending on the volcano, but the fact that secret magma pools that are basically undetectable could be lurking under seemingly non-hazardous volcanoes means that an ordinary eruption could turn into a super eruption without any warning. First you get a bit of smoke, then an unexpected torrent of lava that could wipe out a city that everyone thought was safe. Thanks for watching! Hope you learned something new today! Did you learn about any of this in school? What else do you think is hidden below the Earth's crust? Let me know in the comments below, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. See you next time! Bye!